Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today, we're going to take an analytical look at Kaiju number 8. We will be looking at chapter 82. And it won't be particularly spoilery, but there will be some spoilers for chapter 82. Specifically, I want to take a look at Kaiju number 13. Let me double check that. Yes, Kaiju number 13. That flat-topped, muscle-bound Kaiju that maxed out on speed, agility, and melee strengths. He's the one who in the current arc is taking on the two platoon leaders, Shinomi and the other guy whose neck he was breaking. So this Kaiju appears to be very plain vanilla on the surface, just a basic human muscle frame souped up to be able to take out the platoon leader. It probably wouldn't be a huge challenge for a captain, but currently all the captains are busy, especially the ones who can solo a numbered Kaiju. What is it about number 13 that caught my eye? To be honest, when he first showed up on the scene, I was thinking, he's kind of boring, bland, but he does have a heroic frame. What do I mean by that? The first thing that caught my eye was I wonder if this Kaiju, like number 10, would be amenable to conversation or even working with the defense force, because there is a language to the visual medium all of its own. As unrealistic as it may be, both villainy and heroics are expressed through a certain level of physicality. Now, especially in combat anime, you get really ripped villains, but the hero generally has those Grecian proportions, the idealized body, because, unfortunately, if as it may be, humans trust beauty. And of all of the Kaiju that we've seen in this current arc, Kaiju number 13 is the most, the least horrific and the most beautiful. For instance, Kaiju number 9 is something horrific, and we really don't like looking at him, but Kaiju number 8 is rather pleasant to look at. Part of that is the contrasting color scheme, but part of it is Kaiju number 9 is bubbly and he's scrawny in places, whereas Kaiju number 8 base body, except for his face, is essentially a perfectly framed human body, just with the muscles, sort of an idealized muscle structure. Kaiju number 13 also has that idealized muscle structure, where if you put a human skin on him, he'd just be a superhero. You'd also have to give him the rounded top of his head and eyes, but you get what I'm saying. He also has that heroic jaw, something that Kaiju number 9 is significantly lacking. He's just, in general, a very pleasant creature to look at. So that was what caught my eye about him first. But in the latest chapter, Kaiju number 13 did something during the fight that caught my eye. Not least of which is Matsumoto is very chary of wasting panels. Now, the first time we see Kaiju number 13 in this chapter, he's actively attacking the other platoon leader who's fighting him. He's got his hands around his neck and he's squeezing. And then we see the next panel, again, he's in the same position, still squeezing the neck. And interestingly enough, he's taking his time. He's not killing this platoon leader in the fastest possible way, which would make sense. So I didn't think of it at the time as I was reading this, because when you're reading a comic, the actual real world time that's passing is kind of obscured. But this is enough time for Shinomi to have these thoughts and then get yelled at by the controller before she reacts. And with the speed that Kaiju number 13 possesses, he should have been able to snap Tachibana, I think his name was, Tachibana's neck in an instant. But he gives Shinomi enough time to counter him with her Gatling gun. Then he releases Tachibana, turns on Shinomi, and attacks her with that instant speed. And before Kafka could have gotten there, Kaiju number 13 could have finished her off. She has time. Instead of following up and instantly taking her out after that punch, Kaiju number 13 lets her rebound, get a grenade, reposition, throw the freeze grenade, and make another attack. Then again, he shows that incredible super speed, gets behind her, and punches her again. Then Shinomi is laying there in the ground, and again, instead of coming up and finishing the job, again, this Kaiju number 13, his thing is speed and power. He should have just come, zipped in, and finished her off. But not only does he not do that, the Kaiju number 13 stops over her and says something. Now, they're not words, but they're in a word balloon. If these weren't in a word balloons, I would just assume it was the onomatopoeias of the rubble falling around it, because it's KRSH. Now, I'm going to try to sound that out. There's no vowels, so it's awful hard for a human to do, but now, Kaiju number 13 is standing over Shinomi, saying this, opening his mouth, saying these sounds as if he's trying to communicate with her. And that in itself would be weird enough. Then he finally reels back his fist and punches down, only to realize that he's missed her, and then turn and respond to Kafka's presence in a partially transformed state. And the chapter ends. But this is very, very interesting, and it's made even more so. And now I want to give a shout out to the D-Troop. The D-Troop did a great video recently on how Matsumoto uses similar positioning. Matsumoto will mirror the composition of certain panels when making a point. And there, as odd as it is that this kaiju stopped and was talking to Shinomi in this moment, saying kush, 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 kush. It's made even odder by the fact that this positioning, the way he was standing, was mimicked earlier in the chapter on page, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first panel is page 4. Shinomi herself is standing in there thinking, this is useless. But she's got the slumped shoulders. She's on her knees, looking forward, looking at a situation, looking at Tachibana dying, essentially, as Kaiju number 13 is killing him. Now, as I'm going back, I literally just now noticed something. That kush, 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 kush happens again. And it happens, you see it again, it's in a panel by itself, and it happens right when Kaiju number 13 is standing behind Shinomi, and in this one panel, he's again in a mirroring position. He's standing right behind Shinomi, getting ready to punch her, and their chins are slightly up, they're both in an attack position, these are slightly bent. So again, you get that mirroring, and again, the kush, 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 kush that he does on page 20 in the third panel of page 20. Now, he doesn't make this sound every time before he attacks, but that's twice he's made that sound in this chapter alone, and 3 times he was deliberately mirroring Shinomi's body language. Now, this could be just how Kaiju number 13 attacks. That is a possibility. That Kaiju number 13 uses his strength and his speed, but learns from mimicking the Defense Force officers that he's fighting. But given that you have 1, 2, 3, 4 panels specifically devoted to this one specific sound, all in one chapter, I think it might be more than that. I think Kaiju number, given how physically attractive Kaiju number 13 is, and given that the amount of panels and time that was devoted to Kaiju number 13 saying something, again, it was just kush, 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 but it is Kaiju number 13 seeming to attempt to communicate with Defense Force officers. I think we might get to see some collaboration between Kaiju number 13 and the Defense Force. Who knows? I'd really love to hear what the D Troop says about this, but I'd really like to hear what any of you have to say about this. What do you think is going on? Why is Kaiju number 13 talking? And is there anything that the Defense Force can get out of this? Leave your comments below telling me what you think. Hit that like and subscribe button, and peace out, my wonderful viewers.